A little under a week ago, I set out to try and complete the most notoriously difficult FNAF fan game ever made. Normally, a fan game won't take me more than a few hours to complete, but this one took me 3 full days of non-stop grinding and many pages of notes in order to complete it. The game I'm referring to is, of course, Post Shift 2. Post Shift 2 is a FNAF fan game that released Halloween night of 2022. As many people know, this game was so difficult, unfair, and overly complicated that it was actually removed from GameJolt only 5 hours after being uploaded. The game was receiving overwhelming criticism from everyone who played it, claiming that it was just too hard. With a part A and B, 4 completely different styles of gameplay, rage-inducing minigames that make no sense, pages upon pages of tutorial screens that had me taking notes like I was studying for a test, and so many animatronics that I lost count, I really had no idea what I was getting myself into when I started this game. You'll see throughout this video that the game already begins insanely difficult, but only gets increasingly more wild with every single night, ending on the hardest 6th night I have ever seen in a FNAF fan game, and maybe the most complicated level in any video game that I've ever played. So make sure you watch till the end of the video to see the sheer amount of pain you must endure to complete this game. One thing I should quickly mention before starting though is shortly after the game was removed, it was actually re-uploaded with a few patches. This included a few additions to the tutorial screens and some small tweaks to the earlier nights, as well as night 5. Night 6 though went completely unchanged, still remaining as difficult as it was at launch. And as you guys will see shortly, these patches from the earlier nights didn't help much at all. So without wasting any more time, join me as I take you through the story of how I barely completed FNAF's hardest fan game and lost my sanity along the way. Before jumping straight into the game though, I quickly want to talk about how this game is structured. First off, the game is split into 2 different exe files. You have Post Shift Part A and Post Shift Part B. Both parts feature 3 nights in total. In Part A, each of the 3 nights take place in the same location, only adding new animatronics with each night, just like how any other FNAF game would go. Part B, on the other hand, introduces a new location, new set of mechanics, and new animatronics every single night. Also, last thing I'm gonna say before jumping in, I am not gonna be talking about the story in this video, only the gameplay. There was no chance in hell I was gonna try to piece together the story when I was already taking multiple pages of notes just to remember every single animatronic's mechanics. Night 1 takes place in this warehouse area, which we are able to walk around in. We can do this by using our WASD keys, which will trigger these very nauseating cutscenes of our character walking around to the next location. During night 1, we need to use a tablet which can be accessed in the bottom left corner of our screen in order to command a drone to repair an animatronic. Each repair takes some time to complete, so we must wait a few minutes between sending the drones each time. The way we actually complete the night is by finishing all 3 of our repairs and then reaching 6 AM, all without dying. And this is a lot harder than I expected. So in the warehouse, there are a few key areas in which animatronics will appear. There is the temporary aisle where we spawn, the souvenirs area in front of us, cleaning and sanitary to our left, which by the way requires 2 full walk animations to get to, the construction area to our right, which also requires 2 walking animations, and then behind us we can turn around and walk forward to the middle of the aisle, where we are able to look to our right through this shelf. We can then walk forward once again to the promotional area. Here we were also able to look to the left to check another spot where the animatronics can be. Yeah, it took me a while to get used to it too, so don't worry if you're a little bit confused right now. For night 1, there are 4 different animatronics out to get us. These being Minotaur Freddy, Minotaur Foxy, Minotaur Baby, and Revenant Freddy. Yes, you heard that right. There is 2 different Freddys for night 1. When Revenant Freddy appears, you will hear his laugh, meaning that he is now sitting in the promotional area. This means that Revenant Freddy is 1 step away from attacking. Soon after this, Freddy will randomly move to the left side of the promotional area, meaning you only have a few seconds to run back to the temporary aisle, open your tablet, and throw a decoy drone. There is no sound cue for when Freddy moves the second time, however your screen will begin flashing black before he attacks. Most of the time you are able to use this as an indicator on when to throw the drone. That way you can just stay in the temporary aisle after hearing his initial laugh. However, that doesn't always work because sometimes your screen will be flashing black for a completely different reason. Minotaur Foxy is a little easier to deal with, but but not by much. When Minotaur Foxy appears, you will hear a brief running sound cue. That means he is standing in one of two areas, those being either the other side of the shelves in the temporary aisle or the promotional area. When you hear Foxy's sound cue, you must run up to wherever he is and open your tablet. You can then go to the voice constructor tab where you must input a sentence given to you at the bottom of the screen. You do this by clicking these buttons, which each have a few words written on them, which doesn't sound too hard, but when under pressure and given the fact that Foxy barely gives you any time, it's very easy to mess up. Minotaur Baby will appear in the souvenir area where she can be seen sitting on the table. There is no sound cue for when she appears, so the best way to find out if she is there is to constantly check your tablet's emotional state tab. If the diagram of Baby is red, that means you must go to the souvenir area and pull open your tablet. From here you can click the Run Memories button, which will flash images of various minigame style images. You have to wait until a good memory appears and then click the Lock Memory button, which will calm her down and make her go away. For the fourth and final animatronic of night 1, there is Minotaur Freddy. You will know Minotaur Freddy is attacking when you hear a very faint sound of a piano being played. This is very quiet and blends in really well with the extremely loud ambience, so you will need to be listening intensely throughout the entire night. When you hear this piano, that means that Minotaur Freddy can either be in the cleaning and sanitary area or the construction area. If he is in the construction area, you will see him emerge from the hole and you are given 15 seconds to as quickly as possible make it to the promotional area, which once you've already gotten down the layout of the map is honestly pretty easy, and this means that you got lucky. If Freddy decides to go to the cleaning and sanitary, however, things get a lot more complicated. You will need to go into the room and flash your light on him to confirm that he is in the vent. After doing this, you can then open up your tablet and go to the Report Minotaur Conversion section. From here, you then have to answer a few questions about the animatronic you see in the vent. Questions like, does he have rabbit ears? Does it reside in the cleaning area? And by far the worst question, does it almost look like a completely different character? During one of my attempts, I got this question, and just before that, I noticed Freddy had a bunny ear now instead of a bear one. So with that information, I went ahead and said, yeah, it does almost look like a different character, as it almost now resembled Bonnie. But nope, apparently that's wrong, and I was punished with a jump scare. This is by far the sketchiest mechanic in night 1, as the questions aren't always clear enough, and when under pressure of having the animatronic right in front of you, it can be extremely difficult to get the answers right. Now, is this a stupidly complicated and difficult night 1? Yes, but this is far from the worst this game has to offer. Really, the hardest challenge in this night was just learning everyone's mechanics. Most of the tutorials gave very vague information on the animatronics, like they don't even tell you how to deal with Revenant Freddy. They just say, oh yeah, he appears in the promotional area, and that's it. No information on throwing the drone or which area you have to be in to even be able to throw the drone in the first place. So the first 2 hours of this game were spent dying over and over again, learning the animatronic mechanics from sheer trial and error, and literally writing out my own guide on a notebook which I could refer to mid-game. The speed in which your character navigates the area was also a huge cause for a lot of my deaths. Because of how fast the animatronics kill you and how slow your character runs around, even going to the wrong area once upon realizing an animatronic is attacking can cost you your whole run, which is absolutely brutal. A lot of this night is just sitting around waiting for an animatronic to strike and then perfectly executing the strategy to stop them before returning to the temporary aisle to wait for the next attack. There were a lot of unfair moments though. Sometimes multiple animatronics can attack at the same time, which basically means there is nothing you can do and you just have to restart. There was a lot of RNG and trial and error that goes into this night, which is why it took me over 2 hours to complete. Also, because of how overcomplicated it is, I was never scared once during the game. Now sure, I was stressed, but never was I afraid of the animatronics. I was too busy calculating like 50 different things to even stop and be scared for a second. After night 1 concludes, we get brought to this quick minigame where we are being chased by who I think is William Afton, and here I was sitting here thinking, oh, just a cool little minigame to see into the story. But no, there was actual gameplay to this minigame, and just like the main nights, it is so unfair and completely RNG based. Basically, you need to run towards the right side of the screen to escape the purple guy, while also clicking on every kid you see with your mouse, before eventually reaching a portal at the end of the minigame. This doesn't sound bad at all, but somehow they made this unfair. Sometimes randomly the purple guy will just speed up and catch up to you. There is literally nothing you can do if this happens, and you're just forced to restart the minigame. It also doesn't help that they're playing what is probably the most annoying music I have ever heard in a video game, at max volume in your ears the entire time. It's this short loop that will absolutely drive you crazy while you're trying to beat this. Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention, there's like a 20% chance that when you're going down this ladder, the purple guy will just teleport on top of you and kill you immediately, adding even more unfair deaths to this already brutal minigame. This section was just pure torture. I never thought I would see the day where I would be raging at a FNAF minigame, but here we are. Towards the end of the minigame, we also see a code given to us towards the top of the screen. This code can be entered into a lock pad towards the end of the minigame to receive a key, which will help us reach one of the better endings. Yes, this game has multiple endings. The only problem with this is only one code works out of the 3 codes scattered across the 3 minigames in part A. So basically, you will need to play all 3 nights, write down all of the codes, and then try every single one in order to get the key. Trying to put in the code is so annoying because every time you mess up the code, you can't try again. So you just have to stand there waiting for the timer to run out before attempting to reach the area again, knowing there's a big chance that RNG will just completely screw you over. Oh, but that's not it. The portal towards the end can also send you to multiple different locations. So you have to get lucky with the purple guy RNG, get lucky with where the portal takes you, and then get lucky with guessing the code right. All for this key right here. What the f were they thinking? And if that wasn't rage-inducing enough, on my initial playthrough, I thought you completed the minigame by walking to this large exit door, but I had accidentally opened up the panel to type a code. I was panicking and thought the purple guy would come, so I quickly hit the escape key hoping it would get me out of the panel. But instead, it actually closed my entire game. And because there was no replay minigame section, I was forced to beat night 1 all over again just to go back and get the key. And I still didn't even end up getting it because the code wouldn't work. This isn't a fault of the game though. One of the #1 rules of a FNAF fan game is to never press the escape key. But in panic, I did it, and for that, I paid the price. After getting through that pure hellscape of a minigame, we load into a kind of intermission section in the form of this house. We are able to roam around the house and inspect various areas of it. This area is used mainly to progress the different endings. We can use various different items we collect throughout the night, as well as items like the key we get from the minigame to unlock more of the game's story. For me, I wasn't able to unlock anything after night 1 though, so after just exploring around the place for a little bit, I ended my time at the house and jumped straight into night 2. Just like night 1, we are once again in the same warehouse surviving against the same animatronics, only this time with the addition of Remnant Bonnie, Remnant Foxy, and Remnant Chica. Remnant Bonnie will randomly appear somewhere in the warehouse. When this occurs, we will see a counter in the top left of the screen. To stop Remnant Bonnie from killing us, we need to search around the warehouse until we run into the same room as him. He will then disappear and we will need to find him 3 more times before he goes away. Something weird about Remnant Bonnie though is according to the tutorial, you can also try and use the decoy drone on him, but it only works sometimes, I guess. It just seems very weird to me to even include this mechanic when there is already a proper way to get rid of him. I guess you could just use it as a last-ditch effort if you already know he's gonna kill you. On his own, Remnant Bonnie doesn't cause too much trouble, but when other animatronics are present at the same time, it's pretty much game over, because of how long it takes to find him 4 different times. Remnant Chica appears in the construction area. When Remnant Chica appears, a voice over the intercom will tell you that she has spawned. If this happens, we will need to make our way to the construction area and look down the hole where we will see a flickering light. As soon as you see the light flicker yellow, you will need to make your way back to the temporary aisle and throw your decoy drone, just like with Remnant Freddy. Oh yeah, and for some reason, Remnant Chica is wearing a hazmat suit. I have no idea why an animatronic would need to be wearing a hazmat suit, but hey, at least it looks cool. For the final animatronic added in Night 2, we have Remnant Foxy, who has by far the sickest design in the whole game. Remnant Foxy will randomly throughout the night crawl out of the construction area and appear in the temporary aisle, right in front of your face. The way he looks twitching right in front of you, coupled with his crazy detailed design, is just so creepy to me. This was definitely one of the things that stuck out to me the most in these first 3 nights. Anyways, to get rid of him, we need to pull up this remote that can be accessed in the bottom right corner of the screen. From here we need to push these 3 buttons in order to mess with the lights, which will make Foxy leave us alone. He's probably the easiest animatronic to get rid of, but something about that animation just stressed me out every time he appeared, probably because of just how close up he is to our face. Now, since I had already gotten the hang of the gameplay from my 2 hours spent on night 1, I actually managed to beat this night on my 2nd attempt. All 3 of the animatronics added during this night didn't pose too much of a threat, as each of them have a pretty straightforward way of dealing with them. Also, up to this point, Miniature Baby did not appear a single time during my game, which also played a part in allowing me to pass this so quickly. After finishing night 2, it was back to the minigame grind. I spent over 10 minutes doing attempts over and over again trying to get the right code in order to unlock the safe, but once again I left empty-handed. None of the codes I was given would unlock it, so I just had to quit out and keep moving forward. During night 2's house section though, I was actually able to find a family photo of the Aftons lying around in the sink. Other than that though, everything else was locked or inaccessible, so I moved on to night 3. Night 3 surprisingly didn't introduce any new animatronics and was just a harder version of night 2. I didn't really have much trouble with this night either, only dying a couple of times. I also got insanely lucky though, with once again not having to deal with Miniature Baby a single time. I actually noticed she appeared right before the night ended, which was a huge blessing because I started to panic as soon as she appeared. After finishing that stress-inducing but not too difficult 3rd night, I was once again back to the minigame section for the 3rd and final time. I spent another like 15 minutes or so grinding out the minigame, however this time I actually managed to put in the right code. I have no idea if this was a fluke or I just got lucky, but I actually managed to do it. This gave me a key, and I was also told for the first time in this minigame that I had survived. Coming back from the house section, I discovered I was able to place some photos I had gotten during one of the nights on this board on the wall. This is how our character begins to piece together that the animatronics here were rebuilt for another purpose, or something like that. Besides that though, I wasn't able to discover anything else notable in the house, so I went ahead and exited, concluding part A of the game. If you guys thought that was bad though, that was merely an introduction to the game. You guys haven't seen anything yet. Part B took way longer than part A and was even more complicated, so make sure you strap in because we're about to get to the real difficult stuff. Before moving on to part B though, I quickly want to give my closing thoughts on part A. Overall, I think that this is not a bad fan game at all, and hear me out. You can really feel the love and passion that the developer put into this game. The modeling work in this game, as well as the art direction taken with the animatronic designs, is absolutely stunning in my opinion. Characters like Remnant Foxy and Remnant Chica just look so cool and unique when compared to other fan games. Even the smaller stuff like the UI and night completed screens look really sick, which shows me that the developer really put his all into this game. There are so many cool aspects here that, if done just a little bit better, could have really shaped together to be one of the greatest FNAF fan games ever made. It's just such a shame small issues crept their way in, which really hinder the experience. Things like confusing controls, overly complicated mechanics, vague tutorials, and just too much RNG really drag the game down when it could have been so much better, and push a large majority of the game's audience away from ever getting to see all of the content this game has to offer. With that being said though, let's move straight on to part B, which in my opinion is a lot more interesting than part A. Also, really quickly guys, if you're enjoying the video so far, please consider subscribing. It means the world to me. Anyways, let's get back to the video. Starting off post-shift part B, we can now move on to night 4, which takes place in the Minotaur containment area. Honestly, one of the coolest areas in the game. During this night, we must survive until 12 PM while surviving against many different threats. And once again, we are back to reading paragraph after paragraph of tutorials. Luckily for you guys though, I'll summarize everything so it's easier to understand. First, I'll just explain the area though. We have a monitor in front of us which displays Remnant Puppet. We aren't able to walk around as much, but we can turn around 3 different times to see every angle of the room, as well as check under this table in front of the monitor. Seems simple, but of course that's not enough, so there is also an upstairs area we can access by going up a ladder. Here we can also look straight in front of us and behind us. We also have a computer screen which we can only view when staring at the screen with Remnant Puppet on it, which shows us 4 different simulations we need to manage. The first animatronic we need to prevent from killing us is Remnant Balloon Boy. He can be seen standing directly behind us, and very similar to Foxy in FNAF 1, needs to be looked at very frequently. Failing to do this for long enough will cause Balloon Boy to move 1 step closer to killing us. Let this happen too many times and we are dead. In front of us is a monitor with Remnant Puppet. Wait, is that Remnant Puppet or Minotaur Puppet? I'm sorry, I can't even remember. There's like 3 different puppets during this night. I'm not even kidding. Anyways, Minotaur Puppet, I think it is, can be seen in front of us on the monitor. Every once in a while during the night, the words "I am above" will appear on the screen. When this happens, we need to click on the screen with our mouse a few times until this question appears. Enable blaring connection. We now have to press Y to enable it before running up the ladder and turning around to scare away the puppet. I have no idea why it even asks you yes or no, because if you say no, I'm pretty sure you just instantly die. One trick to this though is that we actually can't enable the blaring connection if Remnant Puppet is present. When Remnant Puppet appears, we will hear a faint piano sound playing in the background. Once this occurs, we need to immediately go up the ladder and stare at Remnant Puppet. This will cause Venta Puppet to appear in front of us. Yes, the 3rd puppet in this night. And then we must just look to our left, I think, to get rid of him, or spam click on him. I don't really remember, honestly. I have no idea how this really works because I died a few times, but then other times I would just get away with it, so I'm kind of confused on this mechanic. The final thing we need to worry about during this night is the simulations. Randomly during the night, one of the characters will ask a question on the simulation, and we will need to give them the proper item to calm them down. If we fail to do this, some weird thing happens where they will just turn into one of the animatronics. Like on this attempt right here, I didn't attend to this guy fast enough and he just turned into Freddy. The animatronic will then appear behind you and kill you. Sometimes there is literally no way to win, like this attempt right here where one of them decided to ask for an item as I was already on my way to attend a Remnant Puppet. And because of how slow the animations are, there was literally no way for me to win. Some of these questions are really dumb and make no sense, like this one with Balloon Boy. Here he asks me for his very own pizzeria, and in a panic I had to quickly choose an answer. So I chose whatever this one was right here. Nope, wrong. Surely it can't be this picture of Freddy's face. It looks nothing like a pizzeria. Yeah, it's that one. Not the one with the balloons, not the one with the table. Nope, this picture of Freddy's face indicates a pizzeria, I guess. Other than that one stupid death though, this simulation thing didn't cause too much trouble. As long as RNG is in your favor, you don't really have much to worry about. There is also this virtual disconnect meter in the top right, which indicates whenever an animatronic needs attention. This helps a lot because it allows us to watch over Remnant BB instead of having to constantly check the monitor. Every time you see the percentage go up, you can just quickly go and deal with the simulations. Overall, this night actually wasn't too hard. I only died like 7 times, which, don't get me wrong, is a lot when considering how long the nights are, but to this game's standards, I mean, that's pretty good. Out of all the nights in the game, I might even go as far as to say that this is the most well-balanced night. Other than a few times where there was nothing I could do, I actually felt like I had a grasp on the mechanics this time. time, and felt pretty good executing them. All of the animatronics and visuals in this night are amazing as well. The setting is really cool, and I like that in this night we are more stationary. The walking around of the previous nights just got nauseating after a while. Also, all of the animatronics look really cool, especially Remnant BB and the way his chest opens up as he gets closer to you. I also think the simulation idea is actually pretty cool. The idea that you have to keep the animatronics remembering happier times or else they will revert back to their animatronic forms is just really cool. And turning around and seeing them actually come to life in the office is also sick. One last thing I want to point out is the music in this night is actually really good. I'm not sure if RJack did the music himself, but if he did, then huge props to you, dude, because this music goes hard. So yeah, not the worst night ever. I would actually say I like this one if a few of the tiny issues were ironed out. After finishing night 4, we also get another minigame, and this one is really cool. This minigame is a text adventure starring Afton himself. I'm not sure if it's William Afton or Michael Afton, but yeah. And here I actually managed to get a good ending. In this minigame, we make a series of choices which determines which ending we get. And a really cool thing about this one is that we can actually restart every time we fail. So it's not like if we mess up once, it's the end of the world. Also, the music here is really good once again and not annoying at all like the last minigame music was. I'm pretty sure whichever ending you get here has an influence on which ending you get at the end of the game, but I can't really say that for sure. If so though, that is a really good touch and it adds a lot of replayability to the game for anyone insane enough to attempt this game multiple times. Alright, so now time for night 5, and this is where things get extremely brutal. For anyone who has played Post Shift 1, you may notice right off the bat that this night is very similar to that game. In this night, we are standing in the middle of 4 hallways. There is one in front of us, one behind us, one to the right, and one to the left. Each of these hallways belongs to one animatronic, with the 4 animatronics attacking us being Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy. I'll start with Freddy though. We will know Freddy has spawned when we hear his laughing sound cue. We will then need to run down his hallway to make it to the room where he can be seen playing the piano. Freddy can be heard playing one of 4 songs, so we will need to open up our tablet and click the song databank before selecting whichever song he is playing. Most of these songs are iconic FNAF songs like the Toreador March and the Circus song from FNAF 2, but it's still going to take a lot of trial and error and a couple of times of choosing the wrong song before you get the hang of this mechanic. For Foxy's mechanic, we will hear a robotic voice come over the intercom and it can tell us one of 2 things. Either that Foxy has appeared in Pirate's Cove or a certain number. If we hear either one of these, we must run over to Pirate's Cove. If the voice told us a number, we will need to open up our tablet and put that number to stop Foxy. However, if we did not get a number, we will need to open up our tablet and then open up the even smaller tablet. Yes, there are 2 tablets. And use the camera to check on Foxy. From here, we need to check if Foxy's eye is missing or not. We can then close the tablets and either declare his eye missing or just not do anything at all, and return to monitoring the other animatronics. For Chica, there is a lot of stuff written on the tutorial, however, I did not really follow it at all. There are these 2 buttons used on the tablet to deal with Chica whenever she spawns, those being cut power and oxygen removal. Apparently the oxygen removal will stop Chica, however your gas mask won't work for 90 seconds, and apparently there's a 1 in 4 chance she can still kill you. Like what? I have no idea what any of that means. For me, every time I heard Chica spawn, I would simply run over to her room and use the cut power button, which will just return her to the stage. The gas mask that the tutorial is referring to is used whenever gas fills the room. Basically, randomly during the night, sometimes gas will appear for around a minute and you will need to wait for it to pass. While waiting for it to pass, you will have to use the gas mask, however the heavy breathing and muffled sound it makes it extremely difficult to hear the animatronics, so it's best to wear it only when absolutely necessary. This is honestly what killed me most during this night besides Bonnie, because when I had the mask on, I couldn't even hear the most obvious of sound cues like Freddy's laugh. The character breathes so loud and everything else gets drowned out, so it gets very sketchy whenever you have the mask on. Alright, so now for the last animatronic, who is by far the worst one to deal with, and that is Bonnie. Whenever Bonnie spawns, we will get a notification on our tablet, meaning that we need to run into his room immediately. As soon as we make it down the hall, we will hear one of 4 versions of him playing the guitar, very similar to Freddy. The only difference is actually differentiating which option to pick is nearly impossible unless you have died to him over and over and over again. This is pure trial and error, and I cannot tell you how many times I died to this guy just because I chose the wrong option. Basically, he will be playing the guitar and we will need to say if it is normal pitch, low pitch, no drums, or with drums. And if that sounds confusing, that is because it is. So let me just use the tutorial to break this down because it still makes barely any sense to me. So if the song is playing and doesn't have drums and it's at normal pitch, you will need to click with drums. If the song is at a low pitch, you will need to click normal pitch. If the song is glitching, which is the easiest one to tell, you also need to click normal pitch. And if the song is playing with drums, you will need to click without drums. So to get this straight, the low pitch button does absolutely nothing and shouldn't even be on the tablet at all. If you hear that it's at a low pitch, you click normal pitch. But if you hear that it's at a normal pitch, then you need to listen for drums to decide if they're playing or not. Now, it might sound like it's not too bad, but when you quickly need to come up with an answer, it is extremely confusing, especially because you are most of the time picking the option that is the opposite of what you hear, unlike with the Freddy one. What makes this worse is that on top of everything else, we also have an attention meter. This attention meter determines how active the animatronics are, but a better way to look at this is just do not let the number go over 20. Letting it do that will cause the animatronics to become extremely active to the point where you just get absolutely spammed until death. The attention meter rises every time we do anything, such as running down the halls or using our tablet, so we will need to be sitting in the middle of the room listening quietly for as much time as possible. It is also extremely important to keep that meter down because once we reach 6 AM, it is still not over. No, this is post shift 2 we are talking about, so of course we're not going to get let off that easily. So on top of reaching 6 AM, we also need to do these tasks at the end of the night using our mini tablet, something that wasn't mentioned at all during the tutorial, or that's what I thought at least, because the tutorial only mentions the orders if you open up the mini tablet, but the catch to that is that the tutorial doesn't even tell you the mini tablet exists. And by the way, you open up the mini tablet by pressing Q, so there was no on-screen button to open it up. I had absolutely no idea this thing even existed until I went and watched a guide. We can finish our orders by securing the web line, which takes about 30 seconds to complete, before then doing insta orders, which is like another 30 seconds. On my night, once it reached 6 AM, I realized I didn't do my orders yet and I just completely sent it. I did not worry about any animatronics and decided to just stick the orders to hopefully win. And to my surprise, I actually did it. After I can't even count how many attempts, I finally beat night 5, one of the hardest nights ever. I need you guys to realize how hopeless this night truly felt when playing. During the night, there was a lot of downtime between each animatronic spawning. Those seconds you are sitting there and just absolutely dreading that Bonnie spawns. And the hopeless feeling that I had that I could just guess wrong at like 5 AM and just die immediately made things so much worse. I seriously didn't know if I was ever gonna beat this night or not. Now for the positives of this night, and I have very few to say for this night. First of all, like always, the animatronic designs are really sick. I especially like how Chica looks when glitching out right in front of you and how Bonnie looks. Those two are definitely the scariest in this night. And for the last positive, I guess, I like the layout of the night. I think it's cool that each of the 4 animatronic characters got their own exclusive night, and the way they each get their own room with their own mechanic is really interesting. The execution of it all just wasn't done the best. One final thing I need to mention is there are actually 2 power-ups which can help you during the night. The first one is a second life, which really saved me on my winning attempt. Basically, if you enable this, upon getting jump scared, you will be taken back an hour and revived, so you can continue that run. This was extremely helpful, and also the weird animation it does when you get brought back to life is really cool in my opinion. The other power-up makes it so that any sound you make doesn't actually add to your attention meter. However, I only used this once and it didn't really help me out at all. After completing that absolute torturous night, we have yet another chance to play the Afton Text adventure before moving on to night 6. You only have to play it again if you want, but I decided to do it again and actually managed to get a different ending, where I used a drone to sneak into Freddy's room. This apparently got me another good ending, so I went ahead and moved on to night 6, and I had no idea what I was getting myself into. Alright, so now for night 6. Oh boy, night 6. I have no idea how I'm even gonna explain this night, but I'm gonna do my best, so just bear with me. First of all, unlike every other night in the game where the tutorial is read while walking around the office, for night 6 we are instead given a novel featuring 5 pages worth of tutorials to read before going straight into the night. This already is a huge issue because there is no way to know what the tutorial is actually talking about unless you have already played it. This means that you will need to basically go into the night blind and just get destroyed for a couple of attempts before you can even begin to grasp what the tutorial is talking about. The reason the tutorial page is so long is because not only are we once again in a new area, but there are also brand new animatronics every 2 hours. In this night, we need to survive from 12 AM to 6 AM. The night is split into different segments and all of them need to be beaten in one go. The different segments are 12 AM to 2 AM, 2 AM to 4 AM, and then 4 AM to 6 AM, before then having one final section. Now, thank God there is actually a checkpoint when you reach 4 AM. However, you can still not close the game or even pause it. Regardless though, if this checkpoint right here didn't exist, I can say with 100% confidence I would not have beaten this game. To put this night into perspective, before even beginning an attempt, I had to read through the tutorial multiple times and write another guide in my notebook for myself to refer to whenever I had to deal with an animatronic. This helped me so much in my first few attempts and were really the only reason why I got the hang of the mechanics at all. Especially because when you die, the game doesn't tell you how you could have prevented it or give you tips on how to survive next time. You're just on your own to figure it out. Alright, so 12 AM to 2 AM. Before even explaining the animatronics though, I need to quickly explain the office because this is by far the most confusing one in the entire game. We can look to our right to see Golden Freddy's stage, and then we can also walk closer to get to this machine right here. Whenever we reach a new milestone in the night, so every 2 hours, we will need to come to this button and press it in order to progress to the next section of the night. To our left is a table, which animatronics can hide behind and under. This will be important later. And then behind us is a computer. We can go up to this computer and use it to upload files. Something we need to do during the night to generate power, I think, because yes, this night has a power meter, if it wasn't already hard enough. In front of us, we can also walk forward to another computer screen, and this computer screen is used to fix errors whenever they arise. And we're also able to look to our left of the computer to check an open hallway the animatronics can go down. On top of all of this, we also once again have our trusty tablet from night 5, as well as our mini tablet attachment. We also again have our gas mask because yes, the gas is back. And one thing weird I want to mention about these is they both are now accessed using a button in the bottom left, even though literally one night ago they had their own keybind, which makes it very confusing to get used to. We also on top of everything have a camera to watch over the animatronics, although there is not enough time to sit there and just watch the cameras, so this is basically only used to fight off a few of them. Alright, so I think that's everything in terms of the movement. I could be missing something, but I think I got it all. The 5 animatronics we need to deal with in the first 2 hours of the night are Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, and Shadow Freddy. Freddy will appear in front of you when you hear it laugh, and when he appears you will need to open up your monitor and press the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4 in that order to make him go away. It's not that bad. Foxy will appear in the vent view to the left of the screen and is actually pretty easy to deal with. We just need to run up to him and click the load voice button on our tablet to scare him away. Chica will randomly appear behind a whiteboard at the prototype table with no sound cue and can be scared away by clicking this button in the bottom and then pointing our plush at her. It's actually really tricky to see when Chica spawns and there is no sound cue, so you will need to be checking this area very frequently. Luckily the button to pull out the plush kind of gives it away though, so it makes it a little bit easier. Bonnie will appear right behind us at the communications post and you will not believe it. He once again has the same mechanic he had in night 5, which is just absolutely brutal. I cannot believe he brought this back for night 6. I just cannot believe it. Luckily though, unlike night 5, since he's only here for 2 hours of the night, you will most likely only see him like once or twice during an attempt. Also, the buttons are switched up a little bit and easier to guess, but not by much. For the final animatronic on the first fourth of the night, we have Shadow Freddy, who will appear in the cameras. One funny thing about Shadow Freddy though is the tutorial straight up lies about him. It states that he is only present during the first 2 hours, but this is not true at all. Shadow Freddy is actually present, I'm pretty sure, from 2 AM to 4 AM, because those were the only times when he would appear during my run, which according to the tutorial he shouldn't even be active anymore. His appearance will be told to us through a sound cue and this purple effect which goes on our screen, so we will not need to be checking the cameras the entire night. But when he appears, we will need to find out which camera he is on and then click this button repeatedly to get him to go away. Alright, that was already a lot, and that was just the first 4. Luckily though, that is probably one of the easiest sections of night 6. And don't get me wrong, by no means was this easy at all. I'm just saying it's the easiest out of the 4 sections. The amount of trial and error it took me to learn all of this cannot be understated. I think it was at least like 2 hours of playing before I even got past 2 AM. Some things I want to mention before moving on to the next section though were just a few things I actually like about this night so far. First of all, like always, the area we are in is really cool to explore and look at, like this Toy Bonnie prototype on the table for example. It just shows how this game actually decorates its play spaces. It's not just a realistic looking or scary looking building, it actually has decoration which makes the world feel vast and lived in, which I find to be one of the strongest aspects of the game. Also, the night features the best music in the whole game. The soundtrack goes seriously hard here, and even though it was breaking my focus from hearing the sound cues, I didn't even mind it because it's actually really good. Alright, so now for 2 AM to 4 AM. The 4 main animatronics are no longer active, and we now need to survive against Remnant BB, Minotaur BB, Remnant Puppet, Minotaur Puppet, Minotaur Baby, and Minotaur Ballora. Remnant BB appears directly behind us in the communications post, very similar to how he acts on night 4. We need to frequently check on him in order to make sure his chest isn't opening, and if you check on him and his chest is open a little bit, you can just click on it to shut it, which will basically put him back to 0. It is also important to note that when he is present, we actually can't access the computer anymore, so no more getting power from 2 AM to 4 AM, because he is always just living right there. For Minotaur BB, every once in a while at the prototype table, you will see a button to hide and listen. Upon seeing this, you will need to click the button to go and hide under the table, and then open up your camera, where we can then select a memory which causes Minotaur BB to go away. This isn't what the tutorial says though. Instead, the tutorial for some reason tells us to just wait under the table until BB leaves, but this never worked for me. And selecting the memory on the camera works every single time, so I'm not really sure why it's not mentioned. Minotaur Puppet, in my opinion, is by far the worst animatronic to deal with during these hours. They will appear in one of the cameras and need to be checked on as soon as possible, because failing to do this will cause them to appear over your screen and begin doing damage to you until you eventually die. If you allow Minotaur Puppet to appear on your screen, you have a very small window to make your way back to spawn and look at Golden Freddy, which will actually for some reason make him disappear. This is extremely difficult, however, as within like 5 seconds of Minotaur Puppet appearing, their face will cover your whole screen, making it nearly impossible to make your way back to Golden Freddy unless you remember the exact keys to press to make it there without seeing anything. So your best bet is to just not let Minotaur Puppet get past the camera phase. Remnant Puppet is pretty similar to Minotaur Puppet. They will appear only on cam 5 though, and upon seeing them you'll need to press this button in the bottom left corner of the tablet to get rid of them. It's best to do this while also doing other tasks, such as right before dealing with Remnant BB. Minotaur Ballora behaves a lot like Foxy did in the last 2 hours. When she appears, a robotic voice will announce her presence, meaning it is time to run up to the same area Foxy resides in and use your tablet to switch the music tracks. This oftentimes causes an error to occur on the screen though, but that can be dealt with by pressing tab. Sounds easy enough, but this is something the tutorial doesn't even mention. The only way I was able to figure out that you're supposed to press tab was once again through a YouTube tutorial. For the last animatronic, we have Miniature Baby, who will be seen sitting at the screen hacking our computer. Whenever this occurs, we need to open up our camera and click on this button at the top of the screen. We then just need to select a positive memory, just like we do for her in night 1. After finally making it to 4 AM, we need to once again interact with Golden Freddy's box one more time, which will finally solidify us with a checkpoint. This took me countless hours and so many deaths to complete. I died over and over and over, took countless notes, watched many different playthroughs and tutorials, and this was still the sweatiest night I've ever played. The fact that you can die before even getting to attempt the 2 AM to 4 AM section makes it insanely rage-inducing, because the first 2 hours aren't even that hard. It's just basically RNG based and a guessing game whenever you run into Bonnie. 2 AM to 4 AM is when the difficulty actually ramps up, so you just want to keep replaying that part in order to get the trial and error done. But because the first 2 hours are there, this isn't so easy. I was absolutely raging here, but once I got the checkpoint, I was actually finally seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. Luckily for us, 4 AM to 6 AM is not as hard as the last section. This time we are dealing with Revenant Freddy, Revenant Chica, Revenant Foxy, and Revenant Bonnie. Revenant Freddy has by far the dumbest mechanic in maybe even the entire game. It almost makes no sense at all. Freddy will appear in front of the prototype table, and to get rid of him we will need to open up our tablet and press the numbers 4, 3, 2, 1 in that order to get rid of him. However, this does not work as the song needs to be restarted. We do this by opening up our camera and pressing the restart song button that is now just randomly there. Now the reason this mechanic is so dumb is you think you could just restart the song first, right? I mean, that would make perfect sense. But no, you have to open up the tablet, press 4, 3, 2, 1, let it fail, then open up the monitor, wait for the restart song button to work because most of the time it is still grayed out, press it, then open your tablet up again, and then type the code for a second time. This makes absolutely zero sense, and I have no idea why the restart button is always grayed out. It feels like it's just complete luck. For Revenant Chica, luckily she is really easy to deal with though. She will appear in the communications post, and once again all we need to do is just point the plushie at her, which is not hard at all. For Foxy, he will appear under the prototype table. When he is under there, we need to press this button to go under there with him before opening our camera and selecting a bad memory to get him to go away. And what makes this actually pretty easy is that the bad memory is the same every time. We just need to find this one where there's this dude with a gas mask, and apparently that's a bad memory, so just select that one every time. For the fourth and final animatronic, we have Revenant Bonnie. Revenant Bonnie can appear either at the vent view or Golden Freddy's stage. Whenever he spawns, we need to run over to wherever he is and use our camera to throw a decoy drone to get rid of him. After getting through this one final stretch and reaching 6 AM, you would think it's finally over, right? Surely we worked hard enough and we can finally enjoy the end credits. But nope, it keeps going. For the final section of the game, we will need to survive 200 seconds while also dealing with 2 new animatronics, Amalgabot and Remnant's End. And Amalgabot is the one that we built in night 1. If you remember how we kept sending that drone over and over again, basically we built this dude and he's back to kill us. Remnant's End will sometimes appear in this elevator, which now exists apparently. It's a new section of the office, and if the voice tells you that he has spawned there, you need to run over to the elevator and open it. You will see a plush sitting on the ground. You then need to close the elevator, wait 3 seconds, open it back up, close it again, and then wait 3 more seconds before walking away. After this, he can either spawn by Golden Freddy or at the vent view. If he is at Golden Freddy's stage, we will need to run over to the vent view and play a voice to lure him over, before putting on a mask and pressing these 4 buttons in a specific order. If he goes straight to vent view though, then we will need to go over there and just equip the mask without having to lure him with the voice. For Amalgabot, he can also appear in in 3 different places. The first is the communications post. If he appears here, it's actually really easy to deal with. We just need to put on this Bonnie mask, which can be done by pressing this button at the bottom of our screen. Another place he can appear is under the prototype table. If he does this, we will need to go under the table with him and open up our camera. We can then find the audio protocol button, which is on a random cam, and spam it until it works. For the third and final place he can appear, it is also at the prototype table, but just right in front of us. We will once again need to open up our camera, but this time find a stop button. We again just need to spam it until it eventually works, because no buttons in this game ever work when pressing it just one time, and he will be scared away. Before the timer reaches 0 though, we will also need to make sure we process our orders just like we did in night 5, as if we fail to do so, we won't actually be able to finish the night. Once finishing those tasks though, and the timer reaches 0, we are finally done with Post Shift 2. I was literally shaking after beating this and couldn't believe that I actually managed to pull it off. The amount of trial and error and grinding for perfect RNG this game takes to beat is just insane. After finishing the night, we get a final cutscene, which I'm pretty sure corresponds to whichever ending I got. For my game, I got the deteriorated ending, so not quite the good ending. But if you think I'm going back to get the good ending, you're funny, because I'm never touching this game again. I already served my time. For my overall thoughts on the game, just like I said with part A, I think this game could have been really good. The game has all the pieces here to be such an amazing fan game, but I think the attempt to fill the game with too much content and mechanics seriously hinders the experience. This, in my opinion, is what happens when an overambitious developer works on a game for too long without allowing other people from the outside to playtest it. It's understandable that from the developer's point of view, he might have thought it wasn't too unbalanced or complicated because he literally programmed it. So subconsciously, he already knew all of the mechanics and probably thought it wasn't too confusing. I think that the developer put in serious work, and I honestly respect him a lot. I don't think he should receive any hate for this game at all. At the end of the day, it's a free game that anyone can check out for themselves. And besides the actual gameplay, every other feature of the game is seriously impressive. The art direction, graphics, cutscenes, music, it's all so good. I really hope the developer doesn't lose passion for game development after this project, because he is truly talented. Just next time, I think the game needs to be either simplified or split into multiple different games. Like if there was a Post Shift 2, Post Shift 3, that would have been better than just having all these different nights. The game should also be playtested by people who are going in completely blind to the mechanics. That way the developer can tweak the mechanics to not be too confusing, and also make sure the tutorials explain everything at length. I'm curious to hear what you guys in the comments think though. Do you guys think that this was a good fan game, and where would you rank it on your FNAF Fan Games tier list? Let me know in the comments down below. Anyways, that has been it from me, guys. I'm sorry for taking a while to upload. I had to get my wisdom teeth removed, but I'm back on the grind now, so expect a lot of videos coming soon. I hope you guys all enjoyed this one though, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace.